Okay, I came back here and discovered it didn't start the video. I just cleared out the game where the Caro-Kann where Black weakened himself with F5 and didn't start his minority attack, and Christian was able to break through, giving up his queen for two rooks, and then had two powerful rooks on the seventh rank, and Black was just tied up and couldn't go anywhere. So my bad. Uh, so try to recover. I basically blabbered for about 15 minutes into nothingness, and I'll recover, go over these games again and cover them again. So this came out of that star system. It seemed to be even. Okay, so yeah, this remains to be even to me. Good job by White, and we have to compliment White on this number up here. 24 minutes left on his clock. So he spent 36 plus 7. He spent 53 minutes on 17 moves. He's going a little too slow, but but you know it can catch up to him if he keeps taking time. But this is remarkable that he's actually doing this because most people aren't. So good job, White. Uh, okay, now this one uh, I was saying I covered it. I thought this was a mistake here because it gave up this square, and now the F file is open. And although Black's getting his knights active, White now has a threat because this G pawn is overworked. It's one of the drawbacks when you push your pawn. So White's threat is to play knight takes h6 check. So I've got arrows on there already. I was suggesting moves by Black to defend his knight, or just move it. And Black does play one I suggested, defends the knight, also counterattacks down here. So White saves his pawn. In doing so, weakens this pawn. Okay, now we have a threat down here. So he's forced the White rook kind of out of play. Now he plays g6. So White gains a tempo. Now White could now take this pawn, but he's going to lose this pawn in return. Or I think. Let's see. Knight takes, king up, knight back here defending it, maybe f5. So he just plays it sensibly and comes here. So White looks to be a little better here, although he's got a couple of weaknesses. White needs to find a way to activate this bishop, so maybe he could just take this and be okay. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Okay, ooh. White seems to be better here. How did this happen? Okay. So I didn't like White's strategies here. They have this gaping hole on this square. This is weak. So both sides have strengths and weaknesses here. But I'm thinking the game may be close to even. So, we still have a weakness here. We have a weakness here. White's bishop might be arguably a little bit better than Black's. But as I can see on the board, White's going, again, White's going too quick. But it seemed to work out because the position we have, he's up the exchange. So, what do I know, huh? And here it gives up the exchange voluntarily. So you best find some compensation for it. Force series, and he grabs this. So Black has some compensation, but he's only got a pawn. The queen is threatening to give checks that might lead something. This is under attack. Now, this got the queen off to the edge of the board. I don't like that by white so much. Black's queen is nice and centralized. This is under attack. Maybe queen d4 would be prudent here. He doesn't. He gives the check. Comes back this way. Okay. And looks like white's done okay. Black has one pawn compensation for the exchange he's down. In theory, I guess we could argue white's winning. White's biggest enemy is himself here, the clock. Okay, he's added 35 minutes to his clock and spent another 2. He spent 37 minutes on 35 moves. Okay, that's barely over a minute a move. You can't be successful at chess if you play this quick. This is your perfect opportunity to play a strong player and slow down and take your time, and you're not doing it. Okay. Yeah, this one's interesting. Let's see. Okay, so we came out of that C3 Sicilian. Yeah, I thought this seemed about even. Okay, Black's doing a good job with his knights. He grabbed the bishop pair. And he still has bishop over knight. Okay, so what's happening here? My guess is this is about even. Although white has some double pawns on the king side. A2 is under pressure. Could black have taken that? No. If you take it, no. Rook here and then bishop check. Haha. Or the bishop could just come back to d5 and say, I dare you to take my pawn. I'll check. I'll come back and check you and win your rook. So this seems about even. Okay. Now we have one result in. Black won. Now there's the he walked in. See, he walked into a trick here. He set himself up for a fork. Now I don't like this because it weakens this b3 square. Okay. The idea was to get the king to c3, so play king d2. Play king d2 and king c3. And then here's a blunder. How much time did he take on the blunder? Well, his clock goes, you know, he spent 11 seconds on this move. 11 seconds on a losing move. You know, you can't do this if you want to be successful at chess. If anything, just analyze the checks, captures, and threats that your opponent has. Can he capture anything? Surprisingly, black can't capture anything. Can he threaten anything? Well, he can attack the knight. He can attack the bishop, which is defended there, but he can also attack it here, and that happens to be a check. So, white beat himself here. You have nobody to blame but yourself. You're not going to get better at chess if you play fast. You're in a slow time control. This is perfect, you know, perfect training for a tournament. Where you have a chance to earn a real rating and a real title. So you got a free chance to get better at chess, and you want to play blitz. Well, don't play in this. Go play blitz chess and watch what happens in 5 years. You're going to be very good at blitz, and your standard play will not be good at all. Okay, so good game by black. Let's see. Come on with this one. Now this is interesting. This looks very even. With black maybe having a slight edge in that this pawn is on the color of his bishop. So how did this happen? Yeah, I haven't looked at this one in a while. Okay, so let's see. Queen c1. There's the battery. But once again, we see white has got close to an even game, but he's being rewarded for playing quick. You know, I mean, my goodness. Okay, so move 44. He has gained 44 minutes on the clock, and but then he's only consumed uh, some of that time. He spent 36 minutes on this game. 36 for 44 moves. That's under a minute a move. Okay, I'll remind you, you cannot get good at chess playing fast in a slow time control. Take your time. If you lose, you lose. You're playing a strong player. This is how you get better. But you want to be able to sit and plan and anticipate what the guy's trying to do. And he's on a time handicap. He's counting on. He's dependent upon his experience to choose a good move in a short amount of time. And if he doesn't, you can get the advantage and actually beat him. But you only beat him if you take your time. You can't sit there and hope he'll blunder. He might. I mean, I certainly blunder games in simul's, but you can't count on it. You got to outplay him, and you can, with the time advantage, you can make up for the skill difference. Okay, so how did we get here? So I thought this was not the right idea to shut his bishop in. It also gave up control of this square. Now he didn't go to c4. I thought he'd be going to c4. Well, maybe he doesn't see a way out for his knight or something. Okay. Now black is happy to trade off the Fianchetto bishop because he's closed the diagonal. Now this is going to give white a weakness. Black could have taken and had a target and then isolated this pawn. If he took back with the pawn, that is. Okay, so hitting the weak c6 pawn. And here he just trades him off. Okay, white's got a good rook here. Now he's going to give up the exchange on a temporary basis. So at this point, black appears slightly better. And that's based on the fact that the white pawn on e4 is a potential target. And white may have to defend it, but let's see what happens. Okay, threaten to activate the rook. Down here with a check. So he offers a trade. Now here, black is played positionally. The king is shut off. And black is putting his pawns on the opposite color of his bishop, so they won't be targets. Okay, so black might have an advantage here with this move. They have king over, king up, king back, but then black can't activate his king. So white's on the defensive here. White shouldn't lose this, but black has the winning chances. So what can hurt him? Well, it's right up here. It's called the clock. He's bending under a minute a move. Okay, that's what's going to hurt him. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Oh, there's that warning. Am I still here? Yes, of course I'm still here. Okay, what's happening here? Don't quite recall this game. Oh yeah, okay, now I do, yeah. So here I would have played knight h4, but that's okay. Okay, so white hasn't materialized any attacking chance on the king side that he might have had he played the knight over to h4 and f5. Looks like white's got a threat to win a piece. Black's pawn structure looks a little messed up because most of his pawns are on the color of his bishop. So white controls the dark squares here, which makes sense because black doesn't have a bishop or a knight to oppose those dark squares. Okay, so the game seems about even, uh, but black is holding on, and black is doing a good job here. He's taking his time. Okay, 27 minutes. He's had 127, 27 and 18 was 35. 35 minutes for 27 moves. Still a little too fast. Okay, but better than most are doing in this and other exhibitions. Okay, this one interesting. Let's see what's happening here. Don't quite remember this one. Okay, let's see, H3. Now here he didn't take, he came back. So, looks like white's achieved equality here. Okay, well this pawn is a little bit of a problem. And he lost a pawn. Okay, so how did he get into this mess? Let's see. That's how he got the mess. He created a weakness here. So the simple way for white to play this is centralize a rook. There's an open file. Take it. Or bring this rook here and bring the king here and maybe try to play for a d5 break. Both of these are logical. Move your pieces, not your pawns. Your rooks aren't doing any good here. But the good news is you're taking your time. So kudos for that. 21 plus, you've spent 46 minutes on 25 moves. Okay, nearly 2 minutes a move, but you got time on the clock. You could have sat here for 10 minutes and 20 minutes and found a better move than G4. So now you lose a pawn. So white has 6 pawns. You can't afford to take on E5. So you have to play something like king up here or king back here. You got to break that pin. Okay, he came back, and that's where we're at. And now he'll probably take with the knight. So white's extra pawn is a double pawn, but this is in black's extra pawn is a double pawn. That's his favor. Okay. Now this one, I was saying earlier, looked even. Let's see. So yeah, that's where I left off. So knight takes. So we went to the ending where he has the bishop over the knight. But he gave up that advantage right away. But if you're happy with the draw, that's one way to get it. Now here black has a threat. Okay, so seems even. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 games left. We've probably completed about that many. Maybe a few more. So, okay. I mean, I'm not worried about losing this if I'm white, but spent 43 minutes on 27 moves, not quite 2 minutes a move, but again better than most. Let's come back to this game, because this is where where the simul recipient is using his time. In a way, he's using too much time, but he seems to be totally satisfactory here. As you get better, you'll be able to find some of the moves you're finding in less time, meaning you won't get in time trouble as much. So your biggest danger is upon you. You need to make, let's see, to get to move 40, you're going to get an extra 21 minutes. 21 minutes added to your clock. So you'll have about 36 minutes for 21 moves. So, you know, you're a little better than a minute and a half a move, but that's still below your 2.5 minutes a move, okay, that you started with. So, uh, one thing you might consider here is retreating the bishop to e2. Keep it on the board. You have a light squared bishop. Black doesn't. And now you don't have to press f4. That could be weakening, but you can still do it too. Yeah, matter of fact, bishop e2. But it's black's move. Bishop e2 would threaten f4, and the knight has no place to go. So we'll wait and see what black does, and then if bishop e2 threatens to win a piece, certainly worth consideration, and make black solve the position. Okay, so here, somehow black has won 2 pawns. You know, white had some weak pawns. Okay, so, you know, remember like d4. If they could take, he's attacking that, he doesn't take it. Well, he didn't want to lose this. So, he attacked the rook. He defended. But, now that's a strong, black has some very strong and active knights. They're doing a lot of damage here. Now he forks e3 and a3. So that's how he lost the pawn. And then another one. Wow. So now fork, forcing the take. Okay, so black appears to be winning this. This one turned around on white in a hurry. Okay, he's gotten 32 minutes added to his clock. 32 to 18. 50. He's made 32 moves in 50 minutes. Better than a minute a move, but not close to 2.5. So, you know, slow down a little bit. So, let's see. This rook is pinned. One natural move is to put the rook here. We could also play the knight to e3. That hits the queen and defends the rook at the same time. But that might have a problem. Might. Queen check. And I think we're going to lose this rook. Let's see, knight here, queen check. King up, queen takes rook. And yeah, so good. So, you know, now we're also on this guy. So let's see. Yeah, maybe black has misplayed this. Is this an effective fork? Let's see. Well, we can also always counterattack the rook. Or, you know, we could play my move, rook here, and answer queen takes with rook takes. We get our piece back. No, black hasn't bungled this. But white sure seemed to be better back here. Okay, but we had a game in. Black won. Yeah, so he figured he was going to get round out. He just lost another pawn. Yeah, I didn't even mention that thing was hanging. Okay, so this one's hopeless now. But good job on taking your time. Okay, you played well. Great. Okay, so we're down to 6 games. Again, this been here before. It seems that white's biggest enemy is the clock. So black can't really threaten anything here. So bishop e2 makes a certain amount of sense, as I said. Threatens to play f4. You can't keep taking 3 minutes a move. You're going to run out of time. Okay, so let's see. We've looked at this. Let's see. Ring. Oh, there's that stupid. Are you still here? Question. Ugh. Okay, let's see. So we went ahead and took this. Now, Black's giving up the exchange. Well, he can't, obviously can't take the knight because queen down here is fatal. So he needs to take the rook. Now what does Black have? I guess he has knight f4, followed by knight d3. Yeah, Black seems to be in control here. Okay, so here the queens end up coming off. Let's see how the okay. So we left off there. So queen takes. So Black has one pawn compensation, but he's got a pawn majority, and he gets it off and running. Now the only problem with Black's pawn majority is that it's on the color of his bishop, but he might be able to get away with b4 here soon. You know, that's critical to get that pawn majority going. So here, c3, rook takes, c2. You don't have to do that though. c3, pawn takes, rook takes, c2, rook here. So Black is close to a breakthrough here with its majority, but not close enough. Okay, so in theory, I'm going to say that White is probably winning, but he still has to prove it. Let's see. Got to figure. You got to get the king to d2 and free that rook. Okay. Black's up a pawn here. How did this happen? I thought White was a little better here. Or maybe I said that, yeah. I think I was saying Black seemed to be okay. It was up to White to prove things. And there he had weak e-pawn. And there the e-pawn is about ready to fall. And the d-pawn will fall. I don't know why he's been playing rook d5. Now he does. Okay, so one old saying is that all rook and pawn endings are drawn. So White's done the right thing. He's activated his rook. Both sides have a pass pawn. So it might have been better to go to the. No, you can't go to the 7th rank. You run into a tactic. Okay, so now White seems to have his work cut out for him to draw this, but with that active rook, he's got a good shot, and his king is close to the center. It's still an advantage for Black. Okay, now here we have this one. So, let's see. I think we had a check was the last time I saw this. White's managed to put more pawns on the color of his bishop. But how does Black make progress? I think this is the draw. I don't see how Black makes any progress. Okay. So Black's going to get rewarded for moving too quick. Well, he might have won the game if he'd slowed down. Okay, what's happening here? Which game is this? Okay. Okay, so now seems to be close to even. What's your queen? Now, white just won a piece. So what did black do wrong? Oh wait, his queen is on pre and his rook is on pre, so he defended that, so something went wrong. See, one thing you have to be careful with Zwischenzugs is they go attack something else. So black is prepared for rook takes queen because he'll take the queen back. But queen f5 would have made sense. The game stays about even. Now white is winning. Okay, so here, oh, we've gone down to a king and pawn ending. Well, this could get very intriguing in a hurry. I mean, I'm almost saying white's winning this. Well, it's black's move. If it was black's move, or white's move, he would play here. If you're playing for a draw, probably better to keep the rooks on. So how did they come off? He took them off himself. So black probably has to play king d6. This looks risky because king here, and king here. But then on king e3, you can also play e5. So that's kind of what happened. Okay. So black's 2 pawns hold white's 3 back. White has to prove this is a draw. But black's problem is, in order to get a pass pawn, it comes in the center by advancing these guys. And when he advances e5, he gives up this. So black needs to get his king up to d5 first. So black has the winning chances here. My suspicion is it's a draw. Okay, uh-oh. See, we still... Well, he did find my bishop e2 move, but look at his clock, you know. He still has his... minute increment, but, you know. So what would I do with black here? I mean, I'm sorry, with white here. Well, I might not play this move because there's a flight square. You know, it just kind of creates weaknesses. I might take this just to double up some pawns, and if he takes back, we can liquidate some rooks, and you know, some quick exchanges can get black some precious increment time, and make a position easier to solve. And if black takes with the B pawn, this is a target. So, okay, let's move on. So he did play knight f4, and I have to sneeze again. Okay, so let's see. Queen, where are you going to put that queen? If you go to d2, you run into e3, so let's try queen c2. Okay, then that knight just comes into d3. He's getting back the exchange. Nope, black is winning. Okay. Ooh. This is getting dangerous for both sides. How did this happen? Okay, let's see. They said he had to get the king active, but I was saying put the king, replace the rook with the king. Okay. We counterattack the bishop. chase the bishop again. Okay, something's giving here. But the question is, can black get away with c3? It works if he takes the bishop because then you play c2 and you're defenseless against d2. The problem with c3 is he takes on b4 and then brings the king back to c3 and the pawns are halted. Meanwhile, white has an extra pass pawn now on the board. So this could be in white's favor, but he's got to step carefully still. Okay, this get rid of the pawns. This seems to be headed for a draw with correct play, although black has the winning chances. And here they have not agreed to a draw yet, but that's what it seems to be. And so black lost his piece, but he's holding on. You know, I'm wanting to do something like this, just to find a way to check him on the H-file. Okay, this seems deadly. It's threatening a check here. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, so G4 is meant to restrain the pawn from going to F5. Probably even. Okay, so he did play F4. Again, I might, I've been talking about that for a while. It does create some weaknesses on the king side, which can haunt white later. But it does put the question of the knight. What black? Oh, here's that very stupid message. Are you still here? Yes, I am here. I have to click this thing or it'll log me off. Okay, I guess the knight has to go back to D7. But then white just kind of stuck. His F4 pawn is unprotected, although white's not attacking it. He can play a move like bishop E3 and bishop F3 and maintain solidity. You don't want to advance your F pawn and give back E5. You're just taking it away. So one thing white has going is he's able to think on black's time here. Okay, so let's do a quick glance here. So still white's move here. It doesn't mean he's necessarily looking at this board. It's his move on. It's actually his move on every board. That happens sometimes. So he's trying to find the best defense. I do think he's won all of his games so far, but he's not. Unfortunately, he won't win them all. That rarely happens. Okay, let's see. So here he stopped the queen E4 check, although that would still win. Black is just down a piece with no visible counter chances. So I will be back. I'm going to pause this video. I can pause while recording. I'll come back. Okay, resuming this. Looks like we've had a queen exchange. Black may win this pawn, but in the long run he's doomed. White might even play for mate, knight h4. The idea of planting this rook down here. Then knight h4 also clears the rook to come in and defend laterally. And then he goes after that pawn. Okay, black will win the pawn, but it's just a matter of time before white wins this, and then uses the extra piece to win here. Because come up here. So he must be busy on the other boards. He hasn't played the automatic yet. White needs to play quickly here because he's had plenty of time to think. My recommendation is something like bishop f3 or bishop e3 or both, and make black prove he's got something, or try for some exchanges. let's see. E5 would lead to an isolated pawn. E5, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes, pawn takes, rook takes. You create a weakness to gain a few minutes on the clock. Probably not a good idea. But here's a case where White should have had a move planned because he can't afford to keep taking a lot of time on his game. Eventually, he's going to have to move fast, and then the blunders can fly. So, White's playing with dynamite here. He's going to have to play extremely well and quickly. He's already consumed a minute on this move. He just doesn't have the time. He gets a minute increment every move, but if he keeps taking over a minute on his moves, he's going to run out of time. So we'll come back to that one. Okay, so black is up 2 pawns. The rook probably has to go to e2. But after the rook goes to e2, this queen just activates and comes into d4, and black is in complete control. The threat is queen to d1, check, winning the rook. Yeah, you have to play rook e2, so he must be looking at another board. Okay, so this seems to be winning for black. So what I was afraid would happen for to black has happened. Okay, king c5. He did play c3, but the trick was to take here. See, I have the arrows still there. Don't take the bishop. So now king takes b4, and if c2, the king just comes back to c3, and the pawns are halted. Can't, the bishop's on the same color. So king's c2 is the best move. Now pawn takes. Let's see. I guess rook b1. And pawn push, the king just comes back to c3. And both pawns are going to fall. So white appears to be winning this one. Oh, this one got interesting. They got into a king and pawn ending. Okay, so let's see. You're always talking about keeping the rooks on. It's probably a draw. How did he get them off? Oh, that's how. Okay. All right. So g4. He probably needed to get the rook off the file. So the only question is, can white hold this? Whoops. King f4. Yeah, white appears to be in trouble now. He can't get his king back. Okay, very sporting. Aditya Jain 16 gave 15 seconds. Very nice. He doesn't need the time, but it's a nice gesture. We appreciate when you do that for us. I do it to you guys too. Okay, so seems that Eighth is in trouble. Eiffler is in trouble here. He did find queen d4. Here and here. Okay, this one seems to be a draw. This one is a win for white. That leaves this one. So I think black did well by getting the queens off, or getting the rooks off. Probably a draw, but black has the winning chances. But you never know. Okay, so let's come back to here. So here I was talking about bishop e3 as an idea. He protected his pawn, and he's got black thinking. But see, he took took 3 minutes on that move. You know, he had about 10 minutes while Apefler wasn't moving that he could have planned this move ahead of time. So he took 3 minutes on the move. His clock went from 4:14 to 2:15, meaning he got an increment back. It doesn't show them here. I thought it was showing. I thought it was showing the. It would go back on time. Anyway. Now his basic problem is the clock. He's got to play quick every move. You know, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. He gets that 60-second increment added on, but you know he has to move promptly every time. You know, I guess if he goes and takes a minute to move, he won't lose any time on his clock because he'll get it back. But a minute to move is not anywhere close to the time he's been taking. So, but he's got a reasonable position. You know, I'm very impressed. It's just that this is the danger when you take time. So here, it just seems like this is over. I don't really see how white makes any progress. Let's see. The threat is to check. So if we play king here, this queen is probably coming down here. And then the queen needs to come here. And, you know, black's just in control. Also, if the king goes to h2, we can check and force the king back. Now f7 is protected, so then we try to activate this rook so we can play for mate. Now this one ended here. Oh, draw. Huh. Here I thought white would win. So it might be the... Well, you know, we'll give black credit here. He took his time. You know, he got 36 minutes on the clock on the increment, and he got spent 22 minutes, so he spent 58 minutes for 36 moves. Okay, better than a minute a move, better than most. If you don't take as much time, you don't drop that piece. So I still think white wins this if he plays it correctly, but consider it a generous draw offer. Good game, both of you. Okay, now we got 5 games left. Okay, so here, oh, see, here's the problem. He's spending more than a minute a move again. So just play bishop f3, there you go, or e3, and but you know the clock went down. The clock just keeps coming down here. He may end up with the last game in this. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay. Yeah, black just plays, black gets out of check, and if he goes to d6, his king can't approach the pawns. Well, I don't know, maybe this is a, you know, we can maybe decoy the rook away so that the king can get over here. No, there's that stupid iron. Are you still here? Yes. Okay, so it's still a little touch and go here. And now clearly white will queen. Let's see. Queen, and then we stop the pawn. So e4, c3, king over. Then black just brings his king in, and white can't stop him. You know, this is just over. Okay, they're still playing this. 50 move rule. When his last pawn move was way back here on move 47. So I got quite a ways to get to move 107 to call it a draw. No, yeah, 107. So 36 moves to make it a draw. Okay, so this one clarified a little bit. Okay, let's see. G6 gets the check in. Now he gets his king up to D5. But so suddenly black's got some winning chances here. And black has enough time to work this out. You know, the C4 pawn can become a problem, but it's something I was saying much earlier. If that king gets up to D5, you know, the black pawns can advance. So white has a couple of tempo moves, A3 and H5. So what should white play here? King here, check, king back, king here. You spend a tempo move, he spends a tempo move. And black get white's and zoos one. Yeah, black may pull this out. Okay. Now the bishop has vanished. Let's see, how did this happen? Looks like we had one result. Check. He took the bishop. And there goes the pawn. So this one seems to be over. And then white resigned this one. So good game by Aditya Jain. Okay, we're down to 5 games. Okay, so this one got interesting. This one is a draw, but you never know. See, white's playing quick. Uh-oh. So, black's problem is he can't stop this pawn from becoming a queen, and he can't even penetrate with his own king. In time, you know, king there, we can just play back here and D2. But king up, we just push the pawn to F7 and it's all over. And white won. Okay, that was expected. Okay, good game by Chess Warrior. Played a little too quick, but under a minute a move. You have more time left on your clock than you started. So slow down. And we're down to 4 games. Okay, so here we still have this one going, and it'll be interesting to see how white handles the time pressure. Okay, so here he hasn't moved yet. White has to stop this check. Okay, let's look at this one up here. There's the draw. And here, I expect white to take some time on this move. This is difficult for him. You know, he might be drawing by the skin of his teeth. He comes up with that. And the drawback with that, though, is that black can now play F4. And if F3, push, pawn takes, king takes, and this pawn is trouble. And this king will come in here and eat these guys. And white has to grab this pawn on F3 and get down here and eat this pawn, get out of the way, and shove this. I don't think white has enough time, and I'm not going to count. Okay, let's see. So 4 games left. G4. Okay, he still hasn't moved here. Let's sit on this one here for a moment. It looks like it's a Christian's move on every board. So what can black do here? Bishop F6? Just kind of sit on the board here. Bishop F6 and Bishop G7. But then Bishop F6 unprotects D6. So, hard to say. The game seems to be about even. Uh, oh, here's an interesting move. Bishop here. That hits the knight. And if bishop f2, you drop this pawn. So bishop h4 looks like an interesting move. White might have to play knight h1, which just looks horrible. But I'm not sure if black can do much against it. And just bring the knight back to f2 and play defense. So, be interesting to see what black does here. Bishop h4 looks playable. That's, I mentioned the f4 move weakened himself a little bit. Sometimes we just go back. Where's your opponent weak? What's unprotected here? Well, the knight on g3 is unprotected. Is there anything else that white has that's unprotected? It's queen on c3. So, we can attack the unprotected knight or the unprotected queen with the bishop, forcing action on white's part. Bishop h4, white could also try king h2 to protect it. Okay. Well, Christians move on every board. Okay, so I like black's chances for a win here, mainly because of white's dire straits with his time. He has no more than a minute and 38 seconds for his move. He needs to play some good, safe, solid moves in succession to get some time on his clock. Then he can, if he needs to take 2 or 3 minutes, okay, he chose that. Now you got to get that queen out of danger quick. So, queen c2. Now, of course, knight d4 could come in, so maybe queen c1. But, white has to move quickly. There, queen c2. Now maybe knight d4. He played c5. Okay, well, white still has to move quickly, but at least he got a little more time on his clock. Now he's planning to take over the d4 square. So maybe white needs to play something like bishop f3 with the idea of putting the knight on e2 and contesting d4. But it's not easy. His clock is ticking. Okay, well, the queen came off here. How did they come off? Okay, there's maybe some fast moves. Maybe I just missed. Okay, we played here, offered the queen trade. Now, I don't know. Do you need to undouble his pawns? Well, black has a strong king position here, and white can't afford to take, because you'll lose the king and pawn ending. There's that thing. Are you still here? Okay, so I would have tried to keep the queens on and play for mate. Let's look at that real quick. Check. I was looking at this in a similar variation. So let's give the check. He brings his king up. Now, I don't know. We have f5. I was considering that earlier. Then queen f3. Black won. Okay, that was expected. So let's see. Queen check, king up, f5, queen f3. You always play f4, so you can't take it. And it's still in black's favor. There was no mate. Okay, so we're down to 3 games. And here his clock is ticking. So now this is loose, and the knight is coming into d4. So the only way you can oppose d4 is with the knight here. But black has 2 knights, so this knight can come back here and here, and he's going to have a permanent outpost. And we have to make sure e4 doesn't run in trouble. So, and here we had another game. Oh, he won this. Okay, well, white bungled this. Okay, so now he sees this pawn as a goner. Yeah, this is definitely a loss for white. Okay, we're down to 2 games. So I think that white messed up by trading rooks, because king and pawn innings can get very tricky. Okay, so what should white have done here? B3, pawn takes, pin the pawn doesn't work because it takes here. Okay, so just rook c2. Now if you play king d1, you can trade rooks. You don't need to move any of these pawns. Back up a couple more moves. A4 is playable. Rook here is playable. The idea of trying to chase the pawns. Okay, so once the rooks come off, they come off a couple moves. I have to think this is probably a draw, but white misplayed it. So the advice, if you listen to last week's broadcast, I had a guest annotator here, Dan Durham, FIDE master. He came in at the end. He won't be here today. But we were talking about king and pawn innings one time. He goes, if I'm going to go into a king and pawn inning, I'm going to think for a half an hour before I even go into it. So let's back this up. Had white known this advice, he had thought for 30 minutes, he might have calculated all this out. Maybe, maybe not. So, definitely have to take your time on this. Okay, so anyway, this one's over. And we're left with 2 games. And they're still playing out this draw. Yeah. So it comes down to this one here. And, white's got some pressure on e4. That just gives up e5. But, he doesn't have a whole lot of time here. So looks like black can take on no, he can't take on e4. Oh, there's an interesting move, d5. Okay. Oh, you're uncovering an attack down here. Oh, okay. So suddenly, here's what I was discussing earlier. The time starts becoming a factor and messing white up. So it looks like this is turning into black's favor in a hurry. We've got 3 attackers on e4. White has to lose a pawn here. You can't lose the knight. So black has played this well the last few moves. White didn't really come up with a plan. I was just suggesting shuffling his pieces around, and black came up with a plan that I didn't. I didn't even consider this idea of taking over d4. Let's back up. See, one of the options that I was discussing for black was to, or white, was to take on this square. Now, of course, that gets rid of a critter that can control that square. And I was looking at full pawn takes and this. But it's hard for black to get a knight into d4, although maybe he can here and here. I don't know. Why are they still playing this? What did I say? Move 106 to get a draw here? It says a note here. It says that Christian Afler declined to draw. Well, that's all right. You know, you still got a game going. But I don't know how you make progress. White has erected a fortress that black can't penetrate with his king. So basically it comes down to this one. And, you know, white did himself in with the clock. So d5, now there comes a check. So black has won a pawn. And once the knights are traded, it seems to be forced unless black, oh yeah, you're on g3. You have to take the knight. Once that knight takes, that knight on d4 is anchored forever. White would have to give up the exchange to get rid of it. So, you know, maybe white should have been playing for transferring the knight over to e2 at some point, like I say, to hit that square. But this definitely appears to be all over, and white's running low on time. You know, he's down to 23 seconds. So now there's a threat to push the pawn with check, which is a fork. Plus, we're crawling all over f5. Now, black is winning a second pawn here. So this one seems to be wrapping up. But great game by white, you know, especially the example of taking your time. But you got to, you know, find a happy medium, take your time, but leave enough time where you don't get in time pressure. See, the only time, I mean, I used to elaborate a little bit. I used to have a time pressure problem when I was breaking 1800, you know, bouncing around low 1800s, low 1900s for 5 years. I would often just sit there and I couldn't figure out what to do. And I'd be looking and looking and looking for moves. And part of it was, my problem was, I wasn't playing well going into the position. In other words, I wasn't playing the opening all that great. And I wasn't following a good plan in the middle game. So, you know, the position just became easy for my opponent to play. And, you know, you try to construct something out of nothing. Well, that might have dropped a pawn because the rook on e8 is overloaded. But rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, queen takes e4, but then queen d4 check forces the queens off and black will win. But this gives white some time on his clock if he'll play this quickly. So we're talking about time pressure. If I didn't play the early part wise, I just get myself in a position you couldn't really generate things from. You know, every now and then I look at some of my old games that I played back then, and against players that, you know, I would lose the game, and I would ask myself, how could I have even lost to this guy? Because I knew what they were like, but you know, they couldn't have all been picking today to that day to play the game of their life against me. So part of the problem was me. I just wasn't playing well in the early part and made life difficult on myself. Now here, what white did wrong was but here he needs to take on d8. And he took that instead. Okay, well, but you know, wasted time trying to do it. You know, we could have gone down to a queen ending and you'd still be down a pawn, but black has to prove it. So Okay, so white kept the queens on. Maybe he should have gone into the bishop versus knight ending and just try to hold on. Because black's only win would be to create a pass pawn on the king side. Of course, the white pawns on the queen side are rather weak and could become targets. But, it would black should win, but maybe that was his best chance. So anyway, like I said, I used to get in time trouble a lot. And, one of the problems with being in time trouble is what happened to white here. He had to keep playing precisely. He was playing with dynamite. And eventually, if I made a blunder, that was it. Okay, so, if here if white wants to keep the queens on, he needs to protect his bishop. Queen f3, queen e2, but, you know, black's knight and queen are just dominating here. So if you play a better opening and a better middle game, uh, you won't necessarily get in time pressure as much. I hardly ever get in time pressure. So the only time I can really get in time pressure is if I really make a bad move and have to spend a lot of time trying to salvage the game. I mean, that happens. We don't sit there and play perfect chess every game. We all have our disasters. Magnus Carlsen loses here and there. Bobby Fischer lost here and there. Okay, so now just queen d4 check, centralizing the queen. And but knight d4 is not bad either. White can't get rid of that knight. So the key is to try to avoid getting in time pressure. Period. Okay, what's this happening in this other game? There's that stupid or am I still here button. Okay, so they played a lot more moves. We have not that many more to get to the 50 move draw. Of course, black could always shove his pawn up the board and start the 50 move count over, but I don't know. So how would I win this? Well, I'd put my queen on d4 and then advance my king. Just slowly build my position up. Because my queen will be better, my knight will be better, and in theory my king would be better. But it's still long. It's a long road to hoe. Okay, so what's his name? So they ticked off quite a few moves. Obviously, he doesn't want to trade bishops. Wow. Checking through and nothing's happening. Oh, the king broke in. Ah, amazing. So, ouch. Black won. So, what went wrong here? I'll tell you what went wrong here. It's right there on the clock. So it was theoretically a draw, but somehow white let the black king in. How did that happen? How did white let I went so fast I missed it? Okay, now he's trying to put his king on c4. So let's see. So white to play. This is a blunder. You have to punt with something like king a2 or bishop here. you give it protection of the e-pawn. See, that's the problem. So he took, his clock went up 36 seconds. He took 24 seconds on the move. And now it is all over. So you move too fast, you lose. So, I mean, even though I might have found the game, I mean, I would have been annoyed anybody played on in that position. But I also wouldn't have lost it with white. I mean, I understand you want to keep playing, right? Okay, I'm annoyed, but go ahead. But I also realize if you're playing, you're hoping I'm going to blunder. I'm going to make sure I don't blunder. And, you know, he had all that time on the clock to solve it. He just assumed it was a draw, and it wasn't. So we're down to one game, and that's this one. So he checked a couple times, drove the king back. Let's see. Check, and check again. And then he brought his king up. So, you know, it's technique here to win. I don't want this is the last game and we'll be done. I don't want this game to, or this video to get too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause, stretch my legs, and we'll come back and commentate on it shortly. But we're down to one game. And, you know, Christian has played very well today, and I would say for the most part, most of the opponents have too. Okay, so there's been a few moves here since I took a quick break. The queen came off. So, the problem, the bishop doesn't have targets. Well, it has one right there, but that's easy to fix. And now it has, you come down here, but that guy goes up. Meanwhile, this king is threatening to run down this way. And if you win the A pawn, this B pawn will fall. And this guy's going to run. White's got some time back on his clock. Now maybe black should have played here. Or maybe, no, he's bishop here, and then this, and he can't push. Okay. So white needs to play king d3 here. But again, with king d3, this king is going to run this way. So, you know, this is clearly going to end soon, I think. You know, white can't afford to lose a second pawn. His only hope is to stop. There's that stupid. Are you still here? And I clicked it, and I'm safe. His only hope is to just stop black from advancing his f-pawn, but the problem is there's weaknesses on the queen side. That black king is just going to get in there. I mean, this is just clearly lost. So, you know, white had a decent position way back, you know, way back in here. I was recommending this move, but maybe what he needed to do was just play this knight here. If white wants to grab the bishop, so what? Okay. That way we keep control over d4. This knight is going to be able to oppose it. But see, the basic problem is white doesn't really have any way to stop black from penetrating. You know, if white king d2, the king just runs in this way. So white can't really move his king. So he parks his bishop there. But now he's just gradually shoving his pawns up the board. White can't really improve his position. And those pawns are getting closer. So Oh, good. Ape is giving time to his opponent. Very generous. So there's you lose. You can White can lose the game, but he can hold his head high on this one really because he took his time. You know that's why he's only a pawn down in an ending against a FIDE master. I mean, you would think if they played one on one that the FIDE master would be winning about move 25 to 30, maybe even sooner. It wouldn't surprise anybody. Well, but surprise, surprise. Okay, so now it's just up to Black to improve his position. Uh, King D4, King D2. Then I can hop into E3 and threaten the bishop. The bishop retreats. He's going to shove his pawns. Improve the position of the pawns first. White might try bishop 8, bishop F7 just to force the pawn up so that his 2 hold the 3 back, but it's still Black's got better king position. His knight is a great piece. The bishop has no targets. It's just a winning position for Black on all counts. So and the clock is going down again. It's down to 41 seconds. He's got to come up with a move. Well, he needs to move in 20 seconds. Clock is ticking. Okay, so now I'll probably play H4. He doesn't have to. He could bring his king in, and bishop takes is met by knight G3 check. We could play knight G3 check anyway, followed by H4. Make the white king pick a side. The king can't really move, so Black can force it to move with knight G3 check. Of course, there's probably many ways to continue here. Okay, so H4. And White is essentially living on his increment. But it's a full minute, so Black to play. White to play. Yeah, very, very difficult. Okay. So with 10 seconds left, he found a move. Now he's going to penetrate with the king. So king F2. Now he'll either play let's see, knight E3 with the idea of knight D1 check and knight C3 to make the A pawn advance, weakening B3. And, white's king is getting backed up. The black king can try to run over to the queen side once you weaken the queen side pawns. Uh, so, you got to move the bishop. Question is where to put it. F3, F7, B7. Okay, put it on F3. Now, that stops knight D1 check, but he has knight C2. And knight B4 is coming. And we'll weaken the B3 pawn. The knight will plant himself on D4 at some point. And the bishop will be stuck on D1 defending, and black can just advance F5, G4, H3, have an outside pass pawn, and then send his king over to the queen side, and it's all over. So, what's going to happen here? Okay, so now, okay, he just decided to dominate the bishop right now. More than one way to do this, but white can't make any progress. If he moves his king, the white king just penetrates, so he's relegated to moves like bishop H5 and bishop G4. Bishop G4, we play F5 and force it to go to G4, and then we can push G4. Okay, so now F5 looks to be okay. And I can go back to C6 and get into B4. F5, yeah, that works. So, we're just going to put the bishop. D1, just play G4. So black is, oh, there's that stupid message. Are you still here? Yes, I am here. It doesn't think I'm doing anything. Clicking the pieces isn't doing anything in their mind. Come on. Okay, white's down to a minute. And G4 is coming. Black will force a pass pawn that white has to keep an eye on, and that'll be his doom. Okay. Okay, so white needs to move here in about 15 seconds or the game's over. Okay, found a move. Now G4. Yep. Now, if anything, he's even threatening g3 check, followed by king e3. So white almost has to take. So this time was going 3 hours. And white's running low on time again. 10 seconds and counting. If you're not watching the clock, the game will end here promptly. Yeah, he's going to lose on time. He ran out of time. It's not recording it. Some connection. Oh, my connection is lost. Okay. Connection is lost. Trying to reconnect. Well, I've got my Wi-Fi on my taskbar shows that I have connection. This is chess.com's fault. White to play. What do we do here for white? Okay, come on, chess.com. I did not lose connection. Okay? I did not lose connection. You did. Okay, let's see. I was looking at my friends list. You can't see it. Doing some funny things. Showing games I can watch. Okay, I'm going to try to refresh my screen. Let me just press F5. I'm going to pause the video while this tries to correct. Okay, so I got the thing restarted. After G4 comes a check. The black's king is really dominating. And all black's pawns are safe. F3 is coming at black's leisure. The black king can march over to C3 and then push F3. Something goes through, and pawn goes through. Now I've lost connection again. I have not lost connection. Chess.com, you have. Okay, let's see. Press F5. Now white's getting some time back on his clock. Oh, a couple of things have changed. Okay, let's see. So F4. Now we want to try to get a mate. Get the knight to D2. How do we get there? Well, let's see. Right here. It's a little tricky. We got to get the knight to B1. Let's see what he does. Goes there. And that's permanently weak. Now we're close to getting D2. And now this forces mate. Okay, so white has 5 minutes to make his move, but no matter what he does, it's mate next move. So this video will last about 5 minutes at the most. Once white sees the writings on the wall. So let's see, when there's knight C3, he couldn't play this to stop this knight. Oops. Okay, so mate is coming. Again, well played by White. It's good that you're taking your time. More practice, you'll get better and choose moves a little quicker so that you still have enough time to adequately continue. The clock is ticking. So White spent a minute, hasn't found a move. But if you think about it, he doesn't have that many legal moves here. The king can't move. These pawns can't move. Okay, so White's left with two moves, or two chess pieces. He can move this pawn, or he can 1, 2, 3, 4. He has 5 legal moves, and none of them stop this. So what would I do if I was White here? Would I resign or let him mate me? If I was going to let him mate me, I would have done it, or resigned. I would have done it as soon as I realized I couldn't stop mate. It's just a coin toss, because, in a way it's nice to let your opponent mate you because it shows him some respect. It lets him enjoy having a checkmate. But you got to do it now. I mean, sometimes it's easy to miss a one mover, but okay, so he flew with the fawn. Now it's over. Mate. And we have 48 minutes for him to find that. I don't think it'll take that long. Knight d2 is mate. I'm going to type in the message. Good game. Gentlemen, there it ended. Okay, so thanks all for watching. Every Saturday, check my Video Lessons Club or the other clubs we're advertising this in. And this will be, 8 p.m. GMT plus 1. Or is it minus 1? Minus 1. I can't keep track. It's an hour later than England. Okay, this is German time. And there's a time zone converter in the news posts if you don't know what time it is to play, and get in there and play them. It can only help your chess. And for those watching, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to watch. And check out my entire YouTube videos. Devote yourselves to those. I guarantee you're going to get a lot better. Unless you don't want to get better. You have to pay attention. Okay, thanks again.